Welcome to the Lipp Men on Sports, the Sportcat show. We are in week 10 of the UFL. It seems like it's gone by so quick. Let's see who we have hiding backstage to talk about this. There's the one and only Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
All right, what's going on? Maybe we should have invited Vinny, our guest from last night. He played some football. Maybe we should have had him come on and
That's an idea.
talk about the UFL. Didn't even think about it till now, obviously.
Yeah, well, I didn't picture him as a quarterback until, he's like the Doug Flutie type like you were talking about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either. In case you don't know what we're talking, we interviewed Vinny Pacifico last night. He's an independent wrestler. And yeah, he said he played high school football. He was the quarterback. And, later on in the show, he told us he was 5'7". And so we're trying to figure out, if Doug Flutie was his hero. And of course, he came back with the worst thing possible, saying, "My dad loved Doug Flutie," and then proceeded to rattle off a couple of 6'5" quarterbacks that he loved. So,
of course, it was the GOAT. We know. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, he picked good quarterback. Well, Mark Sanchez is not exactly a GOAT, but another tall, sort of prototypical quarterback type.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have anyone else hiding backstage?
No, there is no one hiding backstage. It's just me and you.
We're all right. Well, so the other Lipp man is not here. Obviously, we are on Thursday nights, not Monday night, which is our usual time slot. Glenn, who is there to my, I don't know where he is. He's disorienting me. There to my left. Never mind. The other guy in a box on your screen. For those on audio, he's moving me around so that before I struggle with the actual direction word, he moves me again. It's a fun little game we play that just started today.
Going left to right on the FM dial. That's what it is. So.
Exactly right. Yeah. So he had some technical difficulties, and so we moved the show to. I don't know. I think we were going to move it Tuesday, but the technical difficulties were continuing, so we moved it to Thursday. Anyway, so hopefully Jake is just running late and he's okay. But we'll see. I'll carry on and assume it's just you and I for the time being.
Remind everybody that you can call us in at 1-888-88-YERGZ, 1-888-88-YERGZ, and talk to us at any point in time if you have any questions. The phone line's open, and so is the chat.
Yeah, give us some calls, give us some chats. Let's hear from you. This was the conclusion of week 10, which is the finale. The regular season is done. We're in playoff season as of now, and there were some end-of-year awards. We have 2 weeks worth of ratings because of the delay in the show airing. We actually have week 9 and week 10, and I think that's probably a pretty good place to start. So for week 9, the Michigan-Houston simulcast regionally with DC and Memphis had an aggregate of 800,000. These games were both on Fox. The peak, however, was 1.122 million, which is pretty good. St. Louis versus Arlington on ABC, 886,000, and Birmingham at San Antonio, also on ABC, 1.72 million for the aggregate, and the peak was over 1.3 million. So good numbers, pretty solid in week 9. Week 10, let's see if we can keep it up. Well, the Fox games were Saturday, so the 2 o'clock game, St. Louis at San Antonio, drew 836,000, with its peak being 1.674 million during the 7 to 7:15 quarter, 7 to 7:14 quarter. So now, were people tuning in to see whatever was going to be after, which was probably a playoff baseball or baseball game and maybe a playoff game or something? Maybe, I don't know, but still, it's a darn fine number. The Fox game at 7 p.m., which also actually there was a break between the two Fox games. So the early game was at 2, the late game was at 7. These games generally go about 3 hours. So there was something on between 5 and 7. So it wasn't people tuning in to see the Houston-Memphis game. There was something else. I wish I remembered what it was. If I had the vision to figure that we don't have almost a $1.7 million quarter, I would have looked into it. Maybe it was just local news. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We have Fox 7 o'clock game, Houston at Memphis. this is what I call the toilet bowl. And I was so caught off guard last week by the whole thing that I actually got the stipulation wrong. It was not the loser of the game that got the first pick all the way through the draft. It was the winner of the game. So teams actually had something to play for here. And I actually like that. I like that booking. So you're not playing to lose. You were actually playing to win, even though you had a crappy record. And as usual, Memphis, who I've proclaimed many, many times as the worst professional football team I've ever seen, I overthought things and picked them to win, and they didn't. Houston did. So that's why I'm wearing this shirt, to eat crow and humble pie. Houston won, thus earning the #1 pick in every single round in the UFL draft. This game, however, drew 649,000 with a peak between 10 and 10-14 of 1.147 million in the peak, but 649, not so great for a Saturday night. The ESPN afternoon game on Sunday was 2 o'clock, Birmingham at Michigan. I don't know why they were doing that at 2 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock, probably other commitments. But this did okay. It was, better than the night game on Fox the night before. And usually Fox does better than the cable networks do. 754,000. And then there was an ABC game, and that was Arlington at DC. And they did 893,000. Now, that game was at noon. It was actually earlier. And there was some overlap. So maybe one game ate into the other somewhat. Again, some strange choices there. ESPN and ABC are different networks, but they have the same corporate owner. And yes, every division judges itself by itself. But anyway, I don't want to belabor that too much. I feel like I already have. But everything I've heard is that the networks are satisfied with the numbers, and there's really no doubt that there's going to be a season 2, which is really all I'm particularly concerned about. So you have anything on any of this, Glenn?
No, I mean, the numbers aren't fantastic, but we've got to consider this is the first season back they've kind of failed us. I mean, looking at arena football. So, we're getting vested in it. So it's going to take a bit, but that seems like solid numbers to me. And from what I've heard from the sports news, they're vested and will be another season. So,
yeah, I'm pretty much hearing the same thing too. And you don't hear any of the double speak from the people in corporate, which is mostly Daryl Johnston, but also some of the people under him with less famous names. And, he seems like a pretty straight shooter. And he's speaking and playing in English. You could usually tell when someone starts trying to give you corporate double speak. If you ever watch a politician debate, you can usually tell. Anyway, a couple of injuries and transactions of note. The Brahmas tight end Cody Latimer, who really almost plays the position of wide receiver, is out for the season. Big loss for the Brahmas at exactly the wrong time. Also, their starting quarterback, who was missing for a good part of the season, Chase Garbers, he injured his left wrist in this week's game. Danny Etling, he was going to start for Michigan, so he was back. Bryce Perkins, who I was starting to pull for and was really enjoying. Apparently, he got injured and he's out for the rest of the season. I'm not sure exactly what the nature of that injury is. And E.J. Perry, who was the original starting quarterback for the Panthers, has been activated. A.J. McCarron continues to be questionable. He did play this past week. He didn't play all that well, at least in my opinion. He looked pretty shaky. We have some news that the Stallions defensive coordinator, Chavis, he was hired by the Las Vegas Vipers to be their head coach. I believe they are an Arena League team. So a new defensive coordinator was brought in, Anthony Blevins, for the Stallions. I didn't really notice that they played particularly differently, but they didn't impress the world.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if he feels like it's a mistake going to the Arena League.
I think whenever you get a head coaching chance, you get it. And he probably made most of the money he was going to make on the annual rate for the UFL already. And so it's like, getting a second job and you go take it. So
supposedly they're going to restart their season.
I guess so, yeah. So Anthony Blevins came in as the new defensive coordinator for the Stallions. Did that affect their play? Maybe. Is that the reason why they struggled a little bit? Maybe. We'll get into it a little bit, but again, I'm not so sure. Coach of the year. We talked about this a little bit last week, and I think that you might have asked, or Jake might have asked, like who are some of our picks for that? And I remember that I was struggling between Skip Holtz and Mike Nolan, and I'm like, I know you can't go against somebody who's basically undefeated, or at that point might have been 16-1 or 15-1, and was 8-1 for the season, ended up 9-1. But to me, Mike Nolan and his crew are doing the best, really just an amazing coaching job. But I can't see them going against the guy who's been, basically undefeated. He might have been undefeated at the time we had this. It might have been 2 weeks ago we had this discussion. But Mike Nolan did, in fact, get recognized as Coach of the Year, and, well-deserved. If it was Wade Phillips, that would have been well-deserved too. I say there were 3 candidates who definitely earned it: Mike Nolan, Wade Phillips, and Skip Holtz, earned it with a record of 9-1. You can't shrug at that. No. There are going to be some UFL player showcases where the players can try out for the NFL. There's going to be one in July, one September, one October. A number of UFL players have already been contacted and are going to work out for various NFL teams. One of the DC Defenders, defensive players, is trying out for the Ravens. One of the kickers has already tried out there. There's every day there's 2 or 3 notes of players getting tryouts. One player's tried out for a couple teams. No one can be signed until the UFL season is over, but they can continue to try out and be invited by teams to express their interest in them. So that's pretty cool. The all UFL team also was announced, and I don't know, Glenn, do you have that convenient where we can pull it up? We can go through that.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
I just got to figure out which button to push.
That's all right. I mean, it's in the group chat if nothing else.
No, I got it on the screen here. We're good.
All right.
Show on screen. Let me move this out of the way. All right, so there is the offense, and the defense is down below. So there you go. Well, 2024 all UFL team.
Well, I can't read that, so I'm going to, and I've been doing a lot of talking anyway. So why don't you say who got named? Yeah.
Well, for quarterback, Adrian Martinez from Birmingham, and for the running back, they chose Jacob Sailors from the Battlehawks. Good, solid choice. Wide receiver.
So. I have to say, I'm going to speak for Jake, who's not here, because Jake's like, Jacob Sailors really only mostly played the second half of the season. And honestly, I don't really recall that. I don't know whether he's right or wrong. But who else? Everyone sort of played half a season, whether it was because of injuries or coaches' decisions or personal reasons, or they were just gathering film on all of the players for the NFL. So, yeah, I would say Jacob Sailors did earn that, squeaking that out over people like maybe Matthew Colburn or CJ Maribel. There were a bunch of underachievers. I think Anthony McFarland underachieved. Mark Thompson underachieved. Probably others. But yeah, I'm down with the Jacob Sailors pick.
Yeah, I think it was a solid choice. And because, well, remember, I don't know if he played the full season or not, because that could have been halfway. So wide receiver, Hakeem Butler from St. Louis, and Dawood Davis from Memphis. Yeah, see, Memphis has got one in there. I got to get somebody. Marcus Sims from the Michigan Panthers. Tight end was
three great choices there. I mean, there were some other. Justin Hill had a great season. Deion Kane had a great season. But yeah, I don't think I could argue with any of those choices. Yeah.
No. Tight end, Jay Sternberger from Birmingham.
Solid season, not spectacular. I think we were expecting more spectacular from him. I think we've been spoiled by sort of superstar tight ends in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, if not him, who?
Yeah, that is true. Offensive tackle, Jared Jones-Smith from St. Louis, and Bobby Evans from Arlington. Yeah, that seems like a good choice. Yeah, these people don't get recognized that much. Offensive guard, Zach Johnson, the Birmingham Stallions. Cole Livola, am I pronouncing that right, from San Antonio. And the center is Mike Panasuk from St. Louis, Battlehawks.
Yeah. Sure, why not? I'm not going to pretend I know all the offensive linemen's names. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they don't get they don't get recognized that much. And on the defense, the defensive line, Carlos Davis from Birmingham, Daniel Wise from the Michigan Panthers, and in the edge on the outside linebackers, Chris Odom from Houston, Breland Speaks from Michigan.
Absolutely.
And inside linebackers, Tavante Beckett from San Antonio Brahmas, and Willie Harvey from St. Louis. And cornerback DeAndre Baker from DC, Nate Brooks from Michigan, and Aheed Harris from Arlington.
Sure.
Safety Kai Naku, I'm probably butchering that one, from Michigan, and an AJ Thomas from Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, so before I even say it, kicker. Who's kicker?
I mean, I know that it's Jake Bates, and I think that Jake Bates is benefiting from some of his early season heroics by clutch wins and length of kicks. Towards the end of the season, he struggled. I mean, I think at the end his numbers were like 16 out of 20 or 18 out of 24. But a lot of the kickers started struggling at the end. So there probably is a kicker who has a higher percentage and accounted for more points, but none in that spectacular fashion. And the ones who had opportunities to do it in spectacular fashions, like the Brahmas kicker, blew it. So I guess you really can't argue with Jake Bates, but I don't think he's got sort of the platinum, the white platinum gold veneer that he did, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of the package when it first started, So he was the one. So I think that he got a lot of the hype from the beginning that took him.
Still the one.
Still the one. And punter Marquette King from Arlington.
Sure.
Long snapper is, that is an actual talent. Jordan Ower from Michigan. Mm-hmm. And in return specialist from DC, Chris Rowland.
When he was in there, he was explosive. I'm a little surprised that it wasn't Darius Shepard from, I believe, St. Louis. But okay, solid picks all along. So that's your all UFL team. There are going to be some end-of-year player awards, and I have heard through grapevine that there will be bonuses for those. I've heard a couple $1,000s, which I'm not sure if the person was saying a couple $1,000 like it's $2,000, or more colloquially, like it's $1,750, or it could be $2,400. I don't know, or if they just don't know, which is highly likely. There's not. Sometimes you get hard information on the UFL after something happens, but hopefully by next season it'll all be straightened out. All right, so our first game was Michigan in front of Birmingham. Birmingham gets a home game. Remember, this was a little bit, so two of the games this past week were previews of the playoffs. Michigan played at Birmingham, and they will again this week, just like San Antonio will play in St. Louis. This game, as I mentioned earlier, was on ESPN. The crowd in Birmingham for this, you'd think all-important game, only 7,133. Though I did see somewhere that they did economic impacts of the UFL on certain teams and markets. And for Birmingham, there's something like $23.9 million positive, economic impact, which great. I mean, imagine if the attendance, got up to a modest 14,000, doubling. I mean, doubling is a big percentage, but 14,000, I mean, Alabama's, supposed to be like, if Texas is the heart of football, I mean, Alabama is, at least the liver, or, something else that you can't live without. Lung something. Anyway, so Michigan came into this game with neither starting running back available. Etling was at their at the quarterback position. For Birmingham, Adrian Martinez did start the game, which is good. So this game was a bit of a slog. Neither team was really showing their best. I'm not sure if it was on purpose or not. Birmingham didn't really need to win. They had already locked up home field. Michigan was undermanned. They were missing a lot of people. I only told you, some, and just generally the two running backs that weren't available, just their starting running backs. But Jay Sternberger, who we talked about as being solid but not spectacular, did have a spectacular 53-yard catch, which was largely after the catch, running and breaking tackles. He did fumble the ball towards the goal line, but he recovered his own fumble basically on the 1 yard line. Not basically, on the 1 yard line. And then Maribel ran it in for a touchdown rush. Extra point was missed. Etling took the Panthers downfield for a Bates field goal. So everyone that we've talked a little bit of smack about, are smacking us right back in this game review, and that's fine. Birmingham gets the ball back, and on back-to-back plays, Martinez gets sacked, which, I mean, 1, you don't want to see that, period. 2, you don't want your quarterback getting sacked twice, period. 3, not in the last game of the season where you're risking injury to the MVP of the league. Anyway, he ended up being fine. Danny Etling on the other side, who, I don't know that anyone was really excited about Danny Etling starting for quarterback, except for maybe Danny Etling, but he had a 23-yard rush touchdown. So proving us all wrong. And then Mariner had a 46-yard touchdown pass to end the half at 16-6 in favor of Michigan at Birmingham. Obviously in there's a few, so you had 9, and then so there was a 1-point conversion made in that Mariner touchdown. All right. So at the half, we hear, but the Birmingham, not to be outdone. Remember, Coach Holtz has always opted that they would be the receiving team in the second half, even when they win the toss, and most other teams opt to get the ball first. Coach Holtz has always deferred, sort of like Bill Belichick always did. So Birmingham got the ball, and they proceed to go right down the field, and Maribel has a rush touchdown. It's the second of the day, and in this case, the extra point was good. So now we have a football game. It's 16-13. Bryce Perkins comes in at quarterback. There are 3 offensive penalties that slow them down. They do have a pretty long drive, but because of those offensive penalties, that long drive resulted only in a field goal. So they did put up points, but instead of the touchdown, they settled for field goal. It's 19-13 at this point. And we're pretty much at the 2-minute point now. It's the 2-minute drill for Birmingham. Sternberger catches another touchdown. Well, his only touchdown of the game, and there was a 1-point conversion, which I think was also to Sternberger. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly. But at the end of the game, they score 7 points. They only needed the 1 point, so they only went for the 1 point. It's 19-20. You think that Birmingham's got the game in the bag, but a pretty good kickoff return, and Michigan gets into scoring position, but Bates, the kicker of the year, misses this last-second field goal, and Birmingham sneaks out with a 1-point lead at home. It's 20-19. They end the season at 9-1. Michigan Panthers end the season at 7-3. And most importantly, Jeff, in his picks for Week 10, starts off with a win. I'm gonna spoil this. I won my first 3 games. Obviously, lost the fourth, but I won the 3 games by a total of 3 points. So those of you out there who are smart and even not so smart, you've already done the math on this one. So what is our next game? San Antonio against St. Louis. This might have been a mistake to have both of the playoff preview games on the same day. I don't know if there's any control over that. But anyway, listen, St. Louis in the Battle Dome, they don't disappoint with the fans. They had 34,379 fans there. I mean, that almost feels like a real football game, that kind of attendance.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Chase Garber starts a quarterback. We already mentioned that he got injured during the game, and A.J. McCarron is a quarterback. He was questionable, but listen, St. Louis, they needed to win they were already in the playoffs, but if they lost this game, they would lose the division, and then they'd have to play at San Antonio for the playoff game. The championship game's already in St. Louis, no matter who's in it. So St. Louis really, really needed its game. So in the beginning, Garbers throws a deflected pass, which ends up being an interception for the Battlehawks. But in the ensuing drive, McCarron looked really shaky. I have to be honest, most of the game he looked shaky. He didn't look like himself, or he looked like himself from week 1 and not most of the other weeks. But they got zip. Second drive, there was the San Antonio Brahmas fumbled in the red zone, and St. Louis turned that into zip. Third possession, San Antonio Brahmas, they throw an interception immediately. I'm sorry, I have that wrong. St. Louis in the next possession, they throw an interception immediately, and San Antonio gets the ball back, and they turn that into zip. Finally, on St. Louis's next possession, Stephen Mitchell gets a touchdown catch. The 1 point extra point conversion is good. They do end up getting a field goal. And San Antonio at the end of the half gets into field goal position. That field goal attempt was blocked. So at halftime, it's 10-0 St. Louis in the Battle Dome. It's not looking great for San Antonio. They're not playing well. St. Louis isn't really playing well. This game is really pretty ugly. So second half, Dormandy is in that quarterback for San Antonio. We were not sure whether it was an injury of Garber's or whether it was just coach's decision. It turned out to be the injury. And it turned out to be a good accident, if in fact it was an accident. First drive, you had Ellison with a rushing touchdown, missed extra point because that's the rules. Then in the ensuing drive, St. Louis converts for a field goal. Sailors, our running back of the year, had a very solid game. Up until this point, he was scoreless in this game, but that does change. Kirkland was definitely the standout player for San Antonio. I don't know if he's always been their standout receiver, but this game, it was sort of the Kirkland show. And commentary was all over when they could stop talking about over-unders and betting and gambling and lines and things like that. But he had a big 32-yard catch to Kirkland. This was at, basically at 2 minutes. At this point, it's still 13-6 St. Louis at this point. So he gets that. They make the 2-point conversion. There was a defensive penalty, so that has to be replayed, but it's now a shorter 2-point conversion. It goes from being a 7-yard 2-point conversion to being a 2-yard 2-point conversion, and a missed short catch. So a weird case where when you got closer, they missed the points. So the defensive penalty actually helped the defense in this, just one of those odd things. But at this point, it's now 12-13 with San Antonio catching up. Kirkland was not thrilled about there being an overruling there. But St. Louis did use a super challenge on an ineligible receiver downfield, which was not called. And that was upheld. It's that super challenge that led to that penalty occurring. So pretty good coaching. They went through a lot of detail as to what happened and who called it in. And while Coach Beck was all over the place a little bit, it seems like that Gradkowski from the OC position up top called it down, and they got the number correctly, because when you do a super challenge, you have to say, what are you challenging? And if it's a non-call, you've got to give the number of the player who did it. You can't just say offensive lineman downfield. You have to say number 50 was illegally downfield. One of those things commentary wasn't too thrilled about. It's like, in that situation, you don't know where people are. You don't know where the play is. These guys, they're trained to go downfield, and, you just have to coach that. But hey, the challenge won. The 2 points were gone. We ended up with Jordan Smith dropping a pass, and there was a missed field goal at the end of this game on the part of San Antonio. So this game ends with a missed field goal. St. Louis coming out by the skin of their chinny chin chin, 13-12. I'm 2-0. Yes, that's my new point. That's point number 2 for me. St. Louis hosts. I want to go out of our normal order and go to conversation. I don't know if we want to do predictions or not. We can, but They say in the NFL, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season.
Yes.
I assume that applies to the UFL as well. I mean, 2 of San Antonio's 3 losses are to the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Yeah.
St. Louis Battlehawks didn't look great. They scored 13 points. McCarron looked shaky. Yes, he's got another week to heal up, but also he played a full game where he got, beat up again. I think that, and also they've got the home field now. They have the home field again. But I think that San Antonio has some tricks up their sleeve. I think they have a really good shot of upsetting. I think it is hard to beat the same team 3 times in one season.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for them, but I think they can do it. And St. Louis is always going to have a crowd there, so
they definitely have the home field advantage. They definitely make noise, and San Antonio definitely needs to make sure that the audio equipment in the helmets for all the quarterbacks and that it's working and functioning. I think they can do it though. I'm picking the upset. I'm picking at least one upset this week, and you just heard it.
There you go.
Yeah, reserve the right to change my mind, but by the end of the show. But yes, this is so. Next game, we're talking about Sunday, of course. DC, Arlington at DC. It's on ABC. The crowd in DC, pretty good, 13,080 people. They were making a big deal that this might be the last time that Perez and Tame play in the UFL. I mean, I'm not really seeing it. I don't think either one of these guys are going to get looked at by the NFL. Though later in the week, I've heard that Luis Perez is considering retirement. People are like, why? You're like the king of spring league football. Well, the king of spring league football isn't really a career, and
no.
He's 29 or 30. And so he's got to start thinking about a career, even if it's in coaching or something, as alma mater or, a local college or even a high school, whatever. So we'll see. Tame, I have no idea why people think he's going to be an NFL prospect, not a quarterback anyway. They did point out that there was a disparity in the team's head-to-head records. It didn't matter because it wasn't all in the UFL, and Tame and Perez only met like 3 out of the 5 times. Whatever. They were trying to make narratives, make storylines for this game that didn't really have a lot at stake. Early field goal for DC. There was Roland had a great kickoff return, but it only turned into a field goal. Perez threw an interception, leading to DC getting the ball back, obviously, because that's what happens when there are interceptions. Devion Smith had a really strong half for DC. They got a second field goal. There was another really nice kickoff return in this game by Roland. I'm sorry, Devion Smith for Arlington had a really nice game, and at running back, they haven't had a very consistent running game. It's mostly Luis Perez's arm. He has the most passing yards in the league. But Roland was really the story for DC on this one. So he got that kickoff return. 2-point conversion was missed. So at this point, DC is ahead 9-6. Vincent Smith gets a 43-yard touchdown catch. The extra point here was missed again, of course. 15-6 at this point. Arlington comes back with a TD catch to Tyler Vaughn. In this case, the 2-point attempt was made, so it's 15-14 at the half. So we have ourselves a football game. Cameron Harrison opens up the second half with a touchdown. The extra point, no good. So it's 21-14. Arlington answers with a field goal. So they're extending they're cutting into the lead a little bit, 21-17, 4-point lead. We then have Tyler Vaughn with his second touchdown catch of the game. 2-point conversion was good. So 2 2-point conversions for DC so far in the second half, and 3 possessions with a score. And because of that, they are now taking the lead at 25-21. Arlington not to give up throws a touchdown catch to Braden Smith. They go for 3 points and they get it. And so now it's 29-25. That was pretty good. And then there's a kickoff, and Arlington, the kickoff return guy, he sees that the ball is going and it's dribbling down towards the goal line. He picks up the ball, puts it in the end zone, and touches the ground with it. Now, I think he thought that he downed it by touching it at the 1 yard line, but the refs are like, no, it's not a touchback, it's a safety. So Arlington scored a safety for DC against itself. I have seen that before with quarterbacks trying to run to avoid a sack or scrambling, they run out of bounds, or intentional grounding that leads to a safety. I mean, but I've never seen this before. Okay. In another iteration, people know me as Evil Dose. So you would think that I'd be like laughing at this. And I did a little bit. But I was watching to see how his teammates reacted. And everybody was, giving him slapping him 5, know that he wasn't shunned. They were coming to sit next to him on the bench. So, good teammating there. I tip my reading glasses to you all. Though I've never seen anything like that. All right. So Luis Perez, NFL quarterback, throws another interception in the fourth quarter. But DC, they turned that into a missed field goal. So, here we go. We're going along with things, and DC, had the 29-25, but then they got the 2 points from the safety. It's 31-25 at this point. Arlington not to give up. Deontay Burnett gets a touchdown catch. The 1 point conversion is good. And it is now, it's 30. All right. So, all right. Yeah, they get the 1 point conversion. I'm sorry, I mixed up. DC gets the touchdown catch with the 1 point conversion. And this ends with the game being 32-31. No. I had it right the first time. Arlington, Deontay Burnett gets a touchdown catch and the 1 point conversion. All right. Everyone out there want to know why I'm having so much trouble with this? Because I mixed up the home team and the away team when I wrote it at the top of my notes. And I put a little arrow to crisscross everything to tell myself that I'm writing for the correct offense and the correct defense under the wrong columns, because I had the team at the top of the headers mixed up. And obviously that method didn't work. But yeah, it was Arlington with Deontay Burnett with the touchdown catch and the point. So they get 7 points. So it's now 32-31, and that's how the game ends. So at this point, I'm 3-0 because I gave up on DC. Again, so 32-31. Arlington ends up 3 of 7, winning 3 of the last 4. DC ends up 4-6, pretty mid. Jeff is 3-0 at this point, doing better in the standings than I am at the commentary. Neither of these teams are in the playoffs. The next 2 teams aren't in the playoffs, but as we mentioned earlier, the winning team here, which would have the second worst record in the league, will get the first round pick in every round of the UFL draft, and that is Houston, Memphis. You already know I lost this game, so I went 3-1 back in the win column after an embarrassing 1-3 weekend for week 9, but overall for the season, pretty good. I don't know what Jake did. I figured he'd be here and he could speak for himself, but given how things were going, I think I ended up the season ahead. And since he's not here to impeach me, I dominated. I killed him. The old man, yeah, wasn't even close. I know you're saying I should have let him win, but he's an adult. It's not like he's 8, when dad lets the kid win.
He's got to make his bed lying.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So Houston at Memphis. Justin Love. I love Justin Love. I'm beginning with some love. I'm saying start Justin Love at quarterback. They start Justin Love at quarterback. I'm like, Memphis is definitely going to win this game. Houston counters by having Nolan Henderson start at quarterback, although earlier in the week it was reported that Reed Sinnett was going to start at quarterback. But Nolan Henderson, now it's throwing me into a tizzy. These two young guys with lots and lots of potential. But frankly, Love has shown more as a consistent passer that the team sort of rallies around, but a game manager where Nolan Henderson, very inconsistent, very sketchy, but a lot of talent. You could see he's got the legs, he's more mobility. So let's see what happens in this game. Well, you already know the end, but starts off with Memphis getting a field goal from Coughlin. Houston comes back with a Justin Hall touchdown cast. He's probably the star for Houston if there is a star. Well, Odom, the defensive lineman as well. This Justin Hall TD catch was reversed by a super challenge. So Memphis calls a super challenge and wins it. So the Justin Hall touchdown is reversed. Points get taken off. The Houston team, Coach Johnson decides to go for it at 4th and 2, and nope, they don't get it. So it goes back to Memphis. Love leads them down the field again for another field goal. Then it goes back to Houston, naturally, and Sinet's in the game now instead of Henderson, and he throws an interception, which is actually what led to the field goal. Last drive of the first half, Houston does kick a field goal. So in this barn burner of the toilet bowl at halftime, it's 6-3. Memphis is ahead. I'm feeling great. My Memphis Showboats, who I finally picked, they're looking good. And if the game ended here, I'd look so smart. I'd be 4-0. I'd be all smug. So the half starts, and I'm still feeling pretty good about myself. I've said that the running back Victor, that if he was on a better team with a better offensive line, I bet he could do something. He looks like he's a good running back. He's a strong guy. Looks like if he had good blocking for him, he could do something. He rewards me with a rush touchdown. The 2-point conversion is no good, so it's now 12-3. And then Merritt has a rush touchdown. Now, I haven't seen much of Merritt for Houston during this year, but whenever he touched the ball, something good happened. So Merritt has a rush touchdown. He had a 20-something yard rush before that where he broke a couple tackles. The extra point was no good, so it's now 12-9. Houston interception, and it was run all the way back for a touchdown, but the touchdown was rescinded due to a penalty on the run back. So the interception was not vitiated, but it was back at the spot of the foul. That led to a field goal for Houston, 12-12. And Memphis comes in, and we have a Victor has his second rush touchdown for an extra point. It's 19-12. And then after that, I can't even tell you what happened because I don't even want to talk about it. It's Houston ended up winning. Houston ended up winning the game by a lot of points, by more than 1 point. And Houston ruined my weekend. And they taught me not to go against myself. Memphis remains the worst professional football team I've ever seen. And they also rewarded by being in the 2 position for the first round of the draft. I'm not sure if it's the same round if they have the same pick every round of the draft or not. I don't know how that works. But unless you have further notes on Houston and how they scored and won that game, that's sort of the end of my recap because I sort of threw my pen at this point.
You were that angry?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was mad at myself. First of all, it's a Sunday. I'm watching football in the afternoon, and so I want me in the football, man mood. It's a man cave kind of thing. And so as soon as Houston is winning, I'm like, I knew that Memphis was going to win. I could just feel it. I'm just like, God damn it! I can't believe I picked Memphis. I threw my pen across the room, and I decided that me lying down and not getting up was more important than me keeping track of all the things that happened in this game from then on, unless Memphis won. And then I would go back because I record the things as well as watch them, so I could go back. But I didn't because Houston won, so there was no reason for it. Just like now, I just flopped my pen around.
Man, you were done with it.
I was done with it. I was so done with it. So we talked about San Antonio against St. Louis. We didn't talk about Michigan at Birmingham because that's going to be the other rematch.
Yes, that one's on Saturday at 3.
Yeah, both these games are going to be. I think they're both 3:00 games, aren't they?
No, the Other game is on Fox at 7
Oh,
Sunday.
Sunday night, 7:00 game. All right.
That's actually good timing.
It seems like it's a good time. Yeah, I like a Sunday night playoff game. Saturday night playoff game probably wouldn't be the worst. You know, it's probably like basketball and NHL playoffs at night. I wonder if Sunday nights are, you know, the league hasn't been able to pick and choose their times because they merged so late, and we've talked about this earlier weeks. They were just taking whatever times were available to them, and everyone understands it. Everyone understands the simultaneous games that happened like 4 times this year. You know, even the overlapping games has hurt overall volume, viewership, that there hasn't been solid marketing in the localities teams to get fans out and fans excited. Though I heard today that there was a rumor that they might be moving one team to Oklahoma City, but a week ago we reported that the league was not considering any moves. So I don't know if this is just a groundswell move, or if it's real, or if it's just for some time in the future. But one of those Texas teams could move. You'd think that Houston would be the sacred cow, but being the 4th biggest city in the country, but they are among the lowest in viewership and attendance. They're not dead last in both, but they're in the bottom 3 in both.
Yeah, I been trying to catch up on any breaking news headlines, and I haven't seen anything about anybody moving, so I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either. I will add one thing about the viewership, despite the simultaneous games that have happened, like I said, at least 4 times, and some overlapping games, and that's happened more. That's happened plenty of times. Sometimes just because the game goes longer than 3 hours, and that happens in the NFL all the time. But it's more impactful in this league when there's only 8 teams and only 2 games a day, if that. But overall, viewership is up 31% from last year. So that's a good sign. And generally they have 200,000 more viewers per game than any other spring football had in the past. So all of that is positive. I'm sure they'd like to do better, but I think they're expecting to do better with the Friday night games on Fox and all the other things we talked about. So Birmingham against Michigan, coach of the year, against the defending coach of the year.
Yeah.
Defending, how many times has Skip Holtz have won spring ball champion? Like 3 in a row now?
I think so, yeah.
Wow. We know that Adrian Martinez will be the quarterback. We don't know who the quarterback will be from Michigan. I guess they're hoping it's EJ Perry. We know it's not Bryce Perkins because he's out. Lewerke, who I convinced myself I liked that one week, isn't being talked about. So I don't know that the game plan is much different with Danny Etling. I mean, he plays similarly to EJ Perry, and the team seemed to be doing better behind Etling than they did Perry. I don't know if that has anything to do with the quarterback himself, or just that they gelled better as a team, or the coaches adjusted. I'm not sure. But what are your thoughts?
I think it was the fluidity of it. I think he seemed to control more. Does that make sense? When you're in a situation like that, you have to project. It seemed to me he controlled better.
Yeah, I'm gonna take off my reading glasses. I don't need them. For those of you seeing, there's nothing left for me to read. I wanted to pick 2 upsets this weekend, and I still want to.
Ooh.
I just don't know that I can. Wes Hills, he's on. He got hurt 4 or 5 weeks ago. Colburn, I think he'll play, but I'm not sure. I think the 3rd running back is Ellison. He's pretty good, but as a change of pace, I don't know if he's got it to be a starter. Just Birmingham, they haven't been playing their best football these last 4 weeks. They've been playing pretty bad football, but they still squeaked out 3 wins. But they did squeak out all 3 of those wins, and they lost another game, which the other team, San Antonio, squeaked out a win with a last 20-second sort of miracle drive. But San Antonio does that. They've done that a few times. One thing I'll say about this league is that very few games are truly over until they're over.
Yeah, I agree there.
So all this time I'm trying to talk myself into, while I'm vamping here, I'm trying to talk myself into picking Michigan in the upset, and
Michigan,
I really want to, but I guess you can tell since I'm not wearing the Michigan shirt, and I have my Brahmas shirt over here, been sitting on it, so it's all wrinkly. But Brahma shirt over here. Did wear it last night for we did the Paranormal Guys show. I've delayed long enough. Birmingham. I'm picking Birmingham.
Yeah, I'm with you, Birmingham, on that one. So
Right, cool.
I think it's going to be Birmingham, St. Louis. That's just me. But
St. Louis in the Battle Dome would be really cool. It's also sort of unfair, but I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna say that there's gonna be at least one upset. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in either of these picks, to be quite honest with you. But I'm gonna stick with Birmingham and San Antonio. I wonder if St. Louis fans will turn out for a game that their team's not involved with. I wonder if the motivation is really to show the world they deserve to get another NFL team, or if it really is the law. And I want those questions answered. So I hope that Brahma and Marduk and Zeus and Odin and all of the other Sky Fathers and Earth Mothers out there support me and make it so that we can find this out. So yeah, those are my picks: Birmingham and San Antonio. Put them in the book.
All right. Well, I'm staying with the Battlehawks and the Stallions. So
that's right.
I was looking through this some of the news, and I see that Jake Bates is going to be potentially going to the Commanders. I almost said Redskins. And from Memphis, Davis looks like he's going to the Panthers.
He's a really good receiver. So, and he's been a really good receiver for Memphis, which is a really bad team. So the Panthers may have gotten a steal there. I think the defensive end from DC, I think his name is Ezekiel. I'm not sure if that's his first name or his last name, but he's getting a tryout with the Ravens. And, any talented defensive lineman, or tweener with the Ravens seems to be successful, going back to Michael McCrary, Terrell Suggs, you name it. Juden, names lost the past, like Zachariah Smith. They all seem to do well. So I got my fingers crossed on that one. But I was much higher on Hakeem Butler earlier in this, midway through the season than towards the end, because he started to seem to get a little bit shaking and rattling. But still, like he's like the big kind of receiver that I'd like to see for the Ravens. I wonder if teams that are still in the hunt, if NFL teams can't contact the players and say, we want you to try out for us, if they have to wait on that. Because most of the news I have heard, well, no, that wouldn't make sense because Jake Bates is in the playoffs. So no, there we go. We have our answer now.
Yeah, he's already talking to the Commanders. So
very cool. All right.
Because Commanders suddenly needed a kicker.
Yeah, I know. One thing about when you follow the UFL, all of a sudden you learn about like all these other teams and machinations. And there's a Mexican pro football league. There's a Chinese pro football league. There's still a European football league that's actually playing now. Obviously, we know about the Canadian Football League, and the UFL. So there's stuff out there, and whatever's left of the Arena Football League, and there's probably multiple divisions on that. So there are other places for pro football players to play, and I guess if you time it right, it can probably be a full-time job, throughout the year. I don't know how the money is in these other leagues, especially the overseas ones, and the travel and the visas and how all that stuff works, and the conversions, and if you have to live there or whatever. But maybe you can play for 2 or 3 leagues over the course of the year, and turn that into a a 6-figure, or maybe 2 times over kind of salary. I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe we'll look into that in the offseason.
Yeah, well, there are teams out there. I remember in Atlanta, I ran a call as a paramedic on an ambulance to a local high school football team during the summer, and picked up a guy, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're a pro. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing playing? He goes, oh, we do this. and he was a Raider. I can't say, but I asked him, and he said, "No, we go around in high school football fields. So that's how we find young talent during the summer." And I was like, that just amazed me. And I was like, wow. And so I was like, well, what team does Atlanta have? He goes, well, it's all backwards. He says the Raiders are actually here. I'm like, makes no sense, but okay. And why do you not have an ambulance here to start with? Because he seriously broke his leg.
Wow. Breaking your leg playing pickup football with high school teams. So that's a new one. I thought the Jeff Kent story was the worst. And when he was in Kansas City, where he said he was washing his car, fell down the steps or whatever, and like nobody believed the story, but nobody could disprove it either.
Yeah. Well, didn't what was his name? He played for Seattle. Didn't he get in trouble for playing for a high school team in the summer league?
I don't know.
I can't remember the full story, but it seemed like he got in trouble for it because he pretended that he wasn't who he was and got by with it until somebody's like, "No, wait a minute, I know you." So.
Well, Jake, you got your wish. You want us to keep the show to an hour or less. I know, Glenn, at the 58-minute mark, that's when you usually put in the commercial for the regular radio stations. So yeah. I don't have anything left to say. Folks, next week, it's playoff week 1. We're going to see reruns of 2 of the games, and then we're going to have our championship game in 2 weeks. There's no timeouts. There's no weeks off. So if there's nothing else from the world, tune into us next week, and you're welcome for this shorter show. And, Jake, we couldn't have done it with you.
I don't know. We'll have to. He's in the chat. We'll have to ask him. But no, it was good because we got to see.
Well, that's a good place for him to
be. The playoff potential. So, because I don't know. Like I said, it's hard to beat the same team. But I don't have anything else. Trying to think. Tomorrow we have the Grid and Guardian Gang. We have an author on that wrote a book about children and when to call 911. She's a teacher, so that'll be kind of good. And then Saturdays we kind of got our goofy show where we do the comedian stuff, the Misfits. That's the only thing I got. And then
Monday we'll be back at our regular time slot for the Lipp men on the UFL, reviewing the first, the only week of the playoffs, and we'll be previewing the championship game and any other news and notes that comes up between now and then. So, I guess. We'll all be seeing you in just a few days.
Yeah. Thank you for waiting until Thursday to see us.
Yeah.
Mother Nature.
Peace out.
We will talk to everybody soon.